You might be able to hear my new dog barking in the
What kind of
background.
what kind of dog did you get?
We rescued kind of a pit mix lab, unclear. She could be many things, but I think she's
What kind?
probably some sort of a pit mix, about 40 pounds. Just
Oh,
a sweetheart, but like has a very like don't fuck with me bark when she gets going,
oh,
you know?
I'll tell you who has a don't fuck with me bark is this one over here, this little angel who looks like some kind of like
Uh-huh.
puppy from a I don't even know what from an advertising agency, and she is like she's a menace. She's funny. Birdie, you're a menace. Boo.
I have a friend who just got a new dog named Birdie.
Oh, really? This is actually, do you know Liz Mitchell and Dan Littleton? Where do you live?
I'm in LA, in Santa Monica.
Oh, okay. So no, you probably don't know them. Anyway, they're great musicians here in the Woodstock community. But you and I have met in passing, I think, haven't we?
Yeah, I
Maybe?
think I feel like I want to say the Sisters Folk Fest in Oregon.
Oh
Have you
yeah.
ever played that? Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I've played Sisters. I had an epic fail at Sisters Folk Fest, which was maybe one of the funniest things I've ever experienced, actually kicking right into a
That's what we're here
gig.
for.
Yeah. So this was 2 years ago or 3 years ago. I get booked on Sisters. I got a really good slot, really good time slot, real prime time.
Was this the fire
May
year?
No, I was supposed to be there the fire year too, and this was my reschedule from that. I
Okay.
guess it was the year after. Really good time slot, man. Really envious
Uh-huh.
positioning right there.
Like a 9 p.m. main
Like a
stage.
9 p.m. headliner kind of hit,
Love it.
big tent, big tent, six, seven, 800 people packed.
Nine,
And a
ten
band
thousand.
called
Yeah.
Little Smokies had just did a set that had people just over the moon, man. People were happy. And I got out there. I had a great fucking band with me, but they were loud as shit. I had like a rock and roll band with me.
Yeah.
And shit, we kicked into Didn't It Rain? And the intro is like this New Orleans, and the guitar kicks in with this
Uh-huh.
feedback and this amp. And I'm like, yes, we're going to kill this set. And Martha Scanlon, who you may know, who's a dear friend of mine, incredible singer songwriter, she was hanging on the sidelines and cheering me on. And she said that it was like watching Moses part the Red Seas, and that all of a sudden there's just this funnel of hundreds of people in droves just exiting the tent, just fleeing from the sound. And I would say maybe 50 people stayed behind to hear the show.
Wait, what happened?
Huh?
You were too loud?
Yeah.
That was it?
Shit, they were gone, gone. Have you ever seen not just like 100 people, like hundreds of
Oh yeah.
people exit your gig on through two exits on the right and the left out of a tent?
That's a really nasty feeling.
It's a, it was so horrifying that it was funny. It's kind of like
It
all
makes
you
you
can
question
do.
your life choices.
Yeah, but the 50 hippies that stayed and danced were so awesome, and we had so much fun. Just, you know.
When you said parting the Red Sea, for some reason I thought that someone was like bleeding or someone was like something like so frightening was happening that they were
It
running
was
in droves.
it was an energy, it was a psychological bleeding. It was an energy trauma to all of them and to me and the band. The guys were like, oh my God. It was very funny.
It always makes me think about those moments when Bob Dylan and the band, obviously your dad on those trips through Europe and
Oh
different
God.
places when they went electric
Yeah.
and people would just boo and throw things at them and
Oh, my,
leave
oh, I know my
for
dad.
years.
Yeah. My
And
dad described that to me.
it was like, how
He
could you not love this
well,
band?
he didn't, in fairness to compare our stories, I just want to say for the record, I did not get booed. It was polite folk festival showing, let me show you my ass as I leave your set. But I won't say anything mean. But yeah, the booing, My dad couldn't take it. He didn't stay for years on that. Do you know that my dad left? Did you know that story? He left that tour. I think he endured it for a few months and he left the tour and he quit and he went to work on an oil rig in New Orleans.
Easy work.
Anything but doing what you love, right? Playing your craft that you've like worked on endlessly. Oh, wait. Hold on, I go fix the fence. Hold on, it just
Okay.
fell down. Hang on. Okay, it's all right. It's okay. It's just a fence. You're such
And Amy is exiting frame. She's corralling the dogs. I'm going to keep narrating until this comes back. I see a lace curtain in her backdrop. I think she's in Woodstock.
All right.
The dogs are holding down the fort. I'm sure my dog will start barking at any moment in response.
Um, yeah, I have to say I always admired him for doing that. Like the pressure of being told by everybody that, you were on such an important and um high profile tour and so much attention on it and such a big deal. And I always thought that was really awesome that he was like, fuck it, not worth it.
Well, for folks who don't know, obviously, can you tell us, let's just start over. Can you introduce yourself from the very beginning, who you are, where you are,
Yes.
and what you
Besides,
do,
yes,
and where you come from?
besides Amy of the Sisters Oregon Fail 2019 or whatever it was,
Yeah.
my name is Amy Helm. I'm a singer and a songwriter and a bit of a hack mandolin player, a little drums, a little piano. I come from Woodstock and I was born and raised here. And my dad was a musician named Levon Helm, who was in a group called The Band, which is why we're talking about the Bob Dylan Judas tour. That sounds,
Well, see, Bob, I think almost probably got off from that because he has that kind of I don't care what you think mentality. But other
yeah,
people I think are much more sensitive. It really hurts your soul when people are turning on you, every night.
sure. And like for those guys, they hadn't worked for like 15 years playing 3 shows a night, 7 days a week, like to then be his band. I mean, with all due respect to Bob Dylan, it wasn't their
Yeah.
final landing. It
Yeah.
wasn't what they envisioned as where they wanted to land. So I think that they were full of their own vision and drive at that point, which is cool too. I mean, those guys had, I often think about that. And the older I get and the more I see the music industry change, I think about it more and more how amazing it must have been to be alive in a time where you could play as many shows as you could handle in a week.
Yeah.
This was like a career choice that some people decided to be plumbers, some decided to be carpenters, some decided to be a bass player. And you could go do that and make a living and raise a family and find an easy, you didn't have to be a star or try to get likes on a social media platform. You just got to go work. And I
You got
think that that's disappearing a bit.
Well, I think a lot of us coming out of this pandemic shutdown have had to reevaluate whether or not this life is even possible, right?
Absolutely. I
I've
was
been
evaluating
Yeah.
that before the shutdown.
Well, yeah.
There's not a single working musician who hasn't had a moment in the van where you're like, is this working out? Like, especially once you start having kids and raising a family. So, yeah.
And you didn't release your first solo record till your mid 40s, right?
Yeah. I was 44 when I put my first record out. And I just turned 50 in December and put my third record out. So
And yeah, your new record's coming out June. Where is it? It's on my notes. I
I think
had
it's
it.
the 18th. Yeah.
And you have a song on there that was originally recorded by your dad and the Nighthawks, right? Back in the 60s.
No, I did that song on the record before this
Oh,
one.
right, right.
So the record before this one I did with a producer named Joe Henry.
Yeah, I love him.
And that record was called This Too Shall Light. And I recorded a Leave On in the Hawks song, The Stones That I Throw. I recorded that on that record. Yeah.
When you're making your own music, and obviously you've been a part of a lot of other bands, you sing beautiful harmonies with folks like Steely Dan and Rosanne Cash.
And William, wait, let me brag for a minute because I'm really proud of this one.
Go on.
One of the coolest harmony gigs that I've ever gotten to do was to sing side by side in the same section as my dear friend Catherine Russell, who is a profoundly, immensely talented singer. So getting to sing with her is always like a master class, and she does all kinds of jazz and she does everything. She does her own recording and touring as a jazz artist, but she's also sang for every superstar in the world. She's kind of like done every harmony gig for every star. But she and I got to sing for William Bell. And for anybody listening who isn't familiar, William Bell was the first artist to record for Stax. And he wrote Born Under a Bad Sign. And he wrote You Don't Miss Your Water Till Your Well Runs Dry. And he is in his 80s and still an astonishing performer. And that was the coolest harmony singing I ever did. I just had to share.
Well, I think there's a really cool thing happening right now where older, seasoned, mature artists are
Yeah.
being appreciated as new artists, right?
Yes.
People like
or as relevant, as important to the moment, right?
Yeah, they're not being phased out because they're not
right.
a hot young teenager, though the hot young teenagers are doing quite well for themselves.
Yes, right.
Billie Eilish. But I'm saying the
Right.
folks like you who have had the time and the history
Yeah.
to really gather your influences, gather your experiences, and put out work that is fully realized right away. Right?
Yeah, right.
It's a beautiful thing because the music is already fully formed, right? I can see
Right.
the history that you came from in the Woodstock scene with your dad, but I also see your own kind of gospel blues lyricism coming to the fore, right? You have a very how do I say it? You have a voice that really rises like a bird for me, like it really like soars,
Thank you.
and that has nothing to do with your dad or nothing to do with previous music. It's your sound,
Right,
and it
right.
doesn't matter when you find that sound. It matters that you do find your sound. It
Yes,
matters that you
right.
do find your sound right now, and
Yes, right.
it's such a beautiful thing what you've created on this record.
Thank you.
And the funny thing is that you did this with this guy Josh Kaufman, who's also working with someone like Taylor Swift, right? So
Right,
he's
right.
bringing some sort of a modern sensibility, bringing the pop world into this Americana roots world. What was it
Yeah,
like working with him and creating
it was
What
it
the
was
Flood Leaves Behind?
yeah, it was really amazing. Thanks for sharing that feedback with me. Yeah, I working with Josh was incredible. I just love him, and I found that he and I just have incredible chemistry, and we
Yeah.
just finish each other's sentences. And when that starts to translate into musical thoughts, when I was preparing material for the record, we would start to fool around with a chorus, and I would begin to sort of tell him where I thought the shape needed, and he was just right there with me. It was like we were just
Yeah.
in it, and it made I've had that kind of chemistry, of course, I've had the opportunity and still do to play with so many wonderful friends and people that are like, your players become your family. That's like your tribe, and I have a lot of that in my life. But to have that chemistry in preparing the songs and then the production around them and the performance of them for an album was a really special thing. And I think that it is um, part of what grounded me. I felt very different doing this record, and back to something that you said a moment ago about sort of become a different season in your life, having, in my late 40s and just turned 50 and preparing to do this record, and kind of all of my experiences were distilled into the songs in a different way, not better or worse, just different from where they were even in my mid 40s, even when I made my first solo record. And then you compare it to where you were, with Olabelle, which is a band I sang with for 10 years when I was in my 30s. I mean, you kind of, it's such a reward to go deeper into your art and to recognize it as just closer to, your truth becomes easier to express. That's kind of what I felt. And I think that chemistry with Josh and the players on the record helped galvanize all of that. And the other piece of the record that was an interesting component of it for me was doing it at the barn. I
Mm-hmm.
recorded it at my dad's studio where he hosted the Midnight Rambles for years. And obviously, this building, his home and his recording studio, and this place where I grew up learning music there,
Yeah.
right? So that was a that was a real piece of the album for me too, the actual physical space of it.
Do you think you ever feel your dad sort of watching over you as you lay down your own music?
I'll tell you the truth, I really did during that record. I always do. And, you know, we always have, they're always with us, right?
Yeah.
And when you, I don't know if you have both your parents, but when you lose a parent, they come in and out in such beautiful and mysterious kind of ways that you feel all the time. But during this record, I did really feel him a couple times very strongly. It was pretty cool.
Well, going back to the Stax idea, I think breathing, that track has the
Cool.
brass and that down home feeling. It feels like it could have been dropped from a 70s outtake, you know.
Isn't that a great horn line? I love that horn line that those guys came up with. The horns on that track are so boss. I love them.
But you can also tell though that it was made, I think, from a pop producer in a way, because the song is like 2.5 minutes long
Yeah.
and then it stops and it
Yeah.
makes you want to like play it again, you know?
Yeah.
And I was almost
I
like
like
mad. I was actually mad when it ended. I was like, wait, what? This is Americana music. We can go 5.5 minutes. It's totally fine. This isn't getting mainstream radio play, but
yeah.
maybe it will. Who knows?
I don't I don't I love that it's short. I like short songs. I like short sets and short songs. But yeah, I guess there is a bit of a, I didn't think of it as a pop production. I mean, so I wrote that song with my friend JT Nero, who's in a band called Birds of Chicago.
Good friend.
And he and I and his wife Allison Russell, who's a great singer-songwriter, she has an incredible album out right now. We have this side project called the Capital Sunrays,
Mm.
which is us with Luther Dickinson and Graham Lesh. And I actually played drums in that band. So JT and I had written that tune, and I performed it just a handful of times with me playing drums. So the first thing that we did was drop it down into the very steady hands of Tony Mason, who was the drummer on this record,
Yeah.
who was really, some guys just have that pocket, and he has that kind of almost Al Green,
Mm.
simple, tight, and really no flourishes. So yeah, I feel like, I don't know, the rhythm section is so great on that track.
I know it's a weird thing to say, but my favorite thing throughout this new record may be like the use of maracas or shakers. Like
Oh, really?
there's just like this
Think
really
of that.
almost like tropical uh backbeat to a lot of the songs, and it's very like earthy. It's
No,
very you know, and it's consistent through a lot of the songs. It's like
I
it's
guess
like a through line that I
right,
really dig.
right. I didn't even think of that. Well, Tony Mason is from North Carolina originally, but he's lived in New York City a long time, and he's been playing with me a long time. He's played with a whole bunch of people, and um, Tony's a few years older than me, so he's from this. It's again, he's one of those players. He's got such a unique, excuse me, pocket, and he's got such a groove. But he also is. He listens so beautifully,
Yeah.
and so I think that he has that that special quality of being able to have this greasy, funky backbeat and yet pull in these kind of these aerated qualities of shaker and percussion without being self-conscious about it. He can mix the two as kind of like a, of the Steve Gadd world of being able to kind of do those things.
Let's talk real quick about that song "Cotton in the Cane,"
Oh
um,
yeah.
because obviously you came from not just one musical parent, but your mom was also a working singer songwriter for many years.
Yeah.
Um, and you talk about the troubled upbringing that sort of you had to go through, and your dad obviously went through heroin addiction and experiencing this s- sudden fame that maybe he never thought would happen to him as a sharecropper son.
Yeah.
And he to this day is obviously beloved and lionized for his work as a drummer. But for you, he was your dad who would sometimes not treat you and everyone else around him well. You
Yeah.
just wanted a dad, and he
Yeah.
was so many things.
Hmm. Totally. Yes. All true. Um, yeah, I think that, well, when you're growing up in a household where addiction is present, you're going to have, it's a very similar experience whether you're living in Beverly Hills or you're living,
Yeah.
regardless of what your economic status is or what your parents even do for a living. I think that you know, feeling feeling the kind of, it's an abandonment, I think, that a lot of people feel
Yeah.
growing up with parents who love you but just can't do any better than what they're doing, and having to manage that and understand as a young person, trying to understand that it's their disease and not them, and that they don't have a better toolbox. That's a really tough thing to understand when you're little. And I do think that I've not really thought about this lately, but I do think that his fame, or anybody who has some kind of a public platform, growing up, he wasn't famous. It wasn't like that. I mean, there was many years when no one knew who he was. I had one or two friends whose parents
Uh-huh.
knew Triple Creek. I didn't grow up with like his fame and his name recognition actually became more present for me later in my life, like more into my 30s, when he
Yeah.
had sort of a renaissance of his own. But I think having anyone with a public platform accompanying that addiction, you're right, it is a weird thing to see someone admired and regarded so highly, and then it feels like the truth of what you're holding feels so extra shadowed, I think. So yeah, and I was really, I mean, he did kick heroin and got sober, and that's a big part of what allowed him to build the Rambles at his home and record 3 records. And he and I had a very, um, I would say, a very profound reconnection of our relationship, which had been fractured for many years because of addiction. Um, so I was very fortunate to get to experience that with him, to really heal that divide and find forgiveness and make music. I mean, that's what we did, that's what my dad and I did.
Yeah.
We came back together. I joined his band. He pulled me under his wing. He gave me more courage and confidence to grow as an artist, and it was a very special experience in my life.
Well, I think a song like "Cotton and the Cane" again wouldn't have been possible if you would have recorded it in your 20s, right?
Right.
It's a
Yes,
song
right.
that like needs the time and the forgiveness to be
Yes.
possible.
Yes, totally. Yeah, absolutely. And I co-wrote that song with the incredible Mary Gauthier. I don't know if you know Mary.
Yeah.
She she's such an incredible writer. And actually writing that song was an interesting experience, because she's such a wordsmith. And for anyone listening who doesn't know her stuff, she just has this
Yeah.
extraordinary gift with words. So you know, she's had her own experiences of recovery and coming through wreckage of people who were beautiful and addicted
Yeah.
souls. And so we would sit and we I had the melody and I had the chords and I had images and memories and I would like describe something and I would say the words, but then she'd take them and make me these kind of laser lines. And it was really a cool experience to write that song with her. It was it's very healing.
I have to say that you were actually one of the people who inspired my band Dust Bowl Revival to start doing these concerts out on our uh, driveway, basically in my driveway early on in
Oh,
the
great. Oh,
pandemic.
wow.
When I saw you
Yeah,
doing those curbside uh,
right.
concerts in
Yes.
Woodstock, I was like, well, we should do that in LA in some form. And we
Oh,
started kind of just
amazing.
filming them on my cell phone and then putting them on Facebook.
Oh,
And
that's so cool.
then we started this sway at home thing where we had like mini festivals with Mary Gauthier was one of the people on there. Um,
Amazing.
and we
Oh,
did a
that's
couple
so
like backyard concerts, but I was like, if Amy Helm's doing this over there, why can't we do this over here? That
Oh,
seems like a good
that's so
idea.
great. That's so great. How was that for you guys? It was really cool to do it. I had a great experience with it. Was it that way for you all?
The Swayed Home thing was really great because it was like
What about the
having the
uh-huh.
experience of a music festival with friends and artists from around the country who could kind of gather in one virtual space. Um,
Yeah.
the actual like backyard Dust Bowl delivery idea never fully took off because I think the
Uh,
restrictions were too intense in
gotcha.
LA County. LA County was like the worst place on earth for a little
Sure.
while for COVID. So
Yes.
we
Sure.
were not fully allowed to do the
Yeah.
stuff like I would have hoped, but um,
Sure.
I
I
think it was
get
the
that.
idea that was really cool.
Oh, yeah, that's great. That's so cool. Yeah, we didn't we went to I didn't film it and didn't share it specifically for that because we were sort of like we weren't doing anything illegal,
Yeah.
really. But because I was like, well, if this Amazon truck can like pull up
Yeah.
and the guy can walk a box up to the porch, then I can stay at the end of the driveway and sing and they can wear a mask and nothing's going to happen, right? So but we kept it very, it was just more of a community service thing. I didn't do
Yeah.
an actual concert. I just would do a couple songs and, you know, it was it was intense, because things were obviously Woodstock wasn't the cases weren't as extreme as LA, but we were so close to the city, to New York City, which was the epicenter of the
Yeah.
beginning of it. So there was this and when you're out in the country, that lockdown feels exaggerated because you're not seeing people. You're like shut down,
Right.
I think so it it was moving to do those curbsides when I did it. I actually had quite a few nurses that were on the front lines fighting this goddamn thing, coming back to their yard and sitting there for a minute and I would sing like Atlantic City to them.
Yeah.
And they would just like cry and thank me and go back to their shift. It was heavy. Some of it was pretty heavy, actually.
And you and your dad used to play in like nursing homes in different places. Did I read that right?
My dad and I used to play in the oncology department, the Sloan Kettering pediatric floor so Sloan Kettering is a big oncology hospital in New York
Right.
City, and we played it on the pediatric floor there for many times actually.
I actually rediscovered the music of the band after growing up listening to it with my dad, obviously, but then, years and years go by and it was always just sort of something you heard on classic rock radio in the background. Uh, and you never really thought about it until we had to learn the songs.
Oh, thank you, Rick.
Um,
Yeah.
your your dad put out Dirt Farmer, which I think was an incredible record, and you were a part of that.
Thank
Um,
you. Yeah.
and then there was a documentary about him, I think, as he passed or right when he passed.
Oh yeah, ain't in it for my health.
Right.
Yeah.
And they did a screening here in LA that we were a
Oh.
part of. Like, there was a concert as part of it,
Oh. Oh, that's
and
cool.
we had to learn some of the band songs,
Oh.
which are very hard to
Yeah.
cover,
Yeah.
especially for the drummers. You
Yeah.
know,
I know,
they're like,
right.
how is he
Yeah.
so laid back and yet so in the pocket?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so we had to learn Cripple Creek and the Weight and the Shape I'm In, all these songs that once you're in it, it's like being in a Shakespeare play. When I used to be
Yeah.
uh, in a lot of theater stuff growing up,
Right.
you could appreciate Hamlet for the words on the page, but once you are playing Polonius or Hamlet, you are in that world and you appreciate it so much deeper. And
Right. Right.
I just became obsessed with figuring out how the band got those rhythms together.
Yeah.
And we did this tour later on of the 50th anniversary of the band, and played performing arts centers and stuff. And Robbie Robertson actually sent a signed vinyl of music from Big Pink, which
Wow,
was
that's
pretty
cool.
touching. And
That's cool.
I wish that, like, you know I could go back in time just like for a couple hours with my dad and like see that
Yeah.
band in its element
Oh man,
before
yeah.
it all slipped away, because
I know.
it was a unique thing that I think people only now are realizing how sort of important it was, because it was really the Americana movement. It was like the seed of the Americana movement.
Right. Right. Right.
Roots music, blues music, soul, funk, folk music, traditional American music played by a bunch of Canadians mostly.
Yeah.
It was
Right.
like everything kind of coming together in this one band.
Right. Yeah, for sure. Totally.
So when you started doing the rambles with your dad, did that start to give you the confidence to see your solo work coming to the fore?
Yes, I think so. Yeah. Yeah. I just want to say I share the desire to be able to go back in time, because I got to go to some shows, of course, when I was a kid, but I didn't know.
Yeah.
I didn't I thought that my dad played drums in Rick Danko's band.
Yeah.
I really did. When I was 6 or 7, I was like, "Okay, I know the song Stage Fright, I get it, I like it." I was like, "Yeah, that's Rick's song, he's Rick's drummer, and that's cool, I'll go watch Stage Fright, and then I'll go back to, like, wherever the other kids are and whatever," you know what I mean? So, I share your desire to do that. Yes, the solo, definitely the rambles informed that and compelled me to do that. I mean, I think my dad was always pushing me to do that before I was even ready. He wanted to see me do that. Um, but yeah, I just followed my again. I have my whole life and my whole career. I've just followed my instincts and followed chemistry of what's in front of me, the people I'm connecting with, and and growing from that, and knowing that I'm growing musically from that, and it's never led me astray. I've followed chemistry and instinct over opportunity and money, and
Mm.
I've always made that choice and been very clear about it and never questioned it, and it's always led me to the right next step in myself as a singer. I was talking to a young I'm I love working with younger musicians, and I
Uh-huh.
have been kind of mentoring quite a few singers and musicians here in the area. Um, and I was talking to this young girl, and I was remembering that when I was her age, I spent a lot of my 20s in my apartment listening to music,
Yeah.
terrified to play. I
Mm.
didn't want to get up on stage and sing. I didn't know how to hold a song. If you had told me when I was even if you had told me when I was even 35 that I would be able to front a band and do a set that I felt was strong and felt confident about and felt moved the people and got some people dancing and could hold myself in that situation on a big festival stage or something, I wouldn't have even ever believed it. So, I was shy and I was listening a lot. And I think that there's never any shame in any season that you have to go through as an artist to find where your comfort is and what you want to say, like you were talking about the band being all those pieces of those music. I mean, we all hold that, right? Every record you ever fell in love with as a boy and as a teenager and coming up, and same with me. I mean, I think all of that's in us. So
Well, if you go back to that debut record of yours, "Didn't It Rain," that song "Spend Our Last Dime," you can hear your dad counting in, you know,
yeah, I love that. I love that intro as the best.
and his voice is all kind of gravelly and he's like way in the
Yeah,
back, but like the
yeah,
energy is just so full of fire. And then you can
yeah.
feel your voice again, sort of just like rising into the sky.
Oh, that's so sweet of you to say. That song, Martha Scanlon wrote that song, who's my friend who I was mentioning
Yeah,
from the Sisters Folk Festival. And I always heard my dad singing that song, but we
right.
never got to cut it. That's what I wanted him to sing lead on that song. So I think when I sang that vocal, I was doing my best to imitate the way I thought he might lean into it. That's a great track. I love his intro on that. And I love his drumming on that record. There's a song called Sing to Me that what he played on it is so unusual if you listen to his intro on that, because it's sort of a ballad with a waltz feel to it, but he came in with such it was unapologetic. It was kind of stronger than I expected and more intricate than I expected, and not what I thought I wanted. But of course, I didn't dare say anything. And then, of course, a year later, whenever my ears opened up to it, I was like, "Oh my gosh, that's like absolutely brilliant what he did on that song."
Yeah, I think it gets harder sometimes as you realize that you worship at the altar of some of these music makers, right? And you
Yeah,
want to create your own small place in this universe.
yeah,
And we all become perfectionists in our own way, where we're like, well, this is not up to the standard of these people. But that's like a very tough place to be because you'll never be satisfied, right? You're never going to be your dad. You're never going to be, uh, you know, Taylor Swift. You're you, right? You have to
right.
find your sound and sort of fall in love with yourself, which is like a hard thing to do, you know?
Which is a and well, it can be a hard thing to do, and it unfortunately is now going to become a harder thing to do given the current trends of our culture. So I mean, I truly believe that, like, I think that social media, you know, having to devote time to Instagram and to how you appear and how you're seen, how you're perceived,
Uh-huh.
and who likes it and who didn't like it, who checked me out, and who didn't check me out. If you imagine that you're about to get on stage and do a gig, and if you imagine that the half an hour that you spend before getting on that stage is clocking which musicians are in the audience and who's here and which of my ex-boyfriends is here and who I'm just kind
Yeah.
of pulling all the things any person could be insecure about, right? Who is she? Did they watch me walking up the steps? Did he see me? Did they see? If you get into that headspace before you walk out on stage and do a gig, you're going to suck because your head's not in the music. You
Right.
know, back to something my dad said. He always said to me, and this is so true, he said, musicians have to treat themselves like athletes. Like when you're out on the road, at a certain point, even if you're still young, you can't be fucking around and partying all the time. As a singer, even when I was still young, like by the time you hit 32, 33, you have to guard your voice,
Yeah.
you have to eat right, You have to sleep right. You've got to work out if that makes you feel good, or do some yoga. You have to not speak a lot. You have to keep your voice maintained. It's your instrument, and it's all very physical stuff.
Right.
And I think that, back to what you said, I think that embracing who we are as artists, there's not we don't live in a world that is really geared towards celebrating that in people. It's
Mm.
just the unfortunate truth of it. I mean, it's it's a flawed industry full of fantastic people, fantastic artists, and fantastic people on the other side. I have met some of the most soulful, incredible people who work at record companies and publishing companies, but the blueprint of this industry was flawed from Jump Street. There's
Yeah.
no getting around that. And when you take that and you now imagine all of us trying to mold careers on Instagram,
Uh-huh.
it's going to be a tough go. It's going to be up to the younger generations to find a way to change that, because
Well, I
it's
think
not in their power.
it's about finding your own community in the larger scary world, right? I think you've found obviously this community in Woodstock and in the Rambles and maybe in the band extended family, and it's finding your niche within the niche within the niche, because
Yes, and
everyone has their own little family that will get behind them. It's about finding those people, which is really
and
hard to do sometimes.
totally, and holding each other up. Like,
Yeah.
you'll notice musicians take care of each other. That's why I'm so honored to be able to carry on the barn and the rambles, and like that this was a place that was built by a drummer for musicians.
Right.
Like, if I can offer your band a gig there, and I've helped give you guys a payday and a great experience and a beautiful room to make music in, like, what a cool thing. But musicians, we do that for each other naturally, most of us, uh, you know connect and try to help each other kind of through. So I think you're right. I think that will be the way that we lift up and out of some of the muck that is social media.
We'll have our agent get in touch with the barn.
Please do.
But that song that just came out, Sweet Mama, feels like
Oh
it could
yeah.
be, in the band universe, right?
Oh really? That's
But in
funny.
my mind, it's like if the band and the Traveling Wilburys got together or something.
Oh, cool. I
Uh,
love that song. I love I like that song too because it's short. I like a short song.
well, it feels like it could be on like rock radio in the 70s. It
That's
has
what,
that
yeah. Yeah.
guitar line that feels like we're going into if you want it, here it is.
Come and get it. Yeah, right. Bum, bum, ching, dick, bum, dum, da, bow, wow, wow, bum. Yeah.
But the harmonica brings it back to something a little more traditional, something old
Yeah.
school.
Go
Uh,
cook. Yeah.
and it feels like honestly a song we need right now as we're about to wake up and get back to what we do best, which is playing in front of people for real.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah. Cool. Thanks. I'm glad you like it. I like that song too. And I just want to say too, for anybody who might listen to this, I'm not down on social media, and I also want to brag on these three young people that I'm lucky enough to have a record company that hired a digital marketing team for me, which for me is a big deal because I post like once a year because I hate it, right?
Uh-huh.
But they have really helped me, and I think that I want to add to my constructive criticism of social media. I just want to add for the record that there's a lot of young people that are learning the curve of social media and how it affects artists, and they're helping people find their way through. So that's going to be part of the solution too.
Well, for people who don't know the different roles that exist within the uh, album cycle, within the album cycle push, right?
Yeah.
You have your record label that distributes it. You have your manager and your agent who are trying to get you gigs and placements and money to actually fund the future of this endeavor. And then
Right.
you have your publicist and you have your social media and you have all this stuff that is all part of the thing. And a lot of times artists are asked to do all of that themselves.
Themselves. It is a big, yes, it is
It's like
a
10
big
jobs.
deal that I have that help right now. A big deal. And I know that and I don't take it for granted. And I also know that I won't have it in a few months when the record cycle's
Right.
over. So yeah,
Enjoy it now.
yeah. Oh, I'm enjoying it. Are you kidding me? This God bless the young people. God bless the youth.
And honestly, this podcast has been around, 3+ years now. And a lot of the way I'm able to connect with folks like you is through awesome publicists who really give a shit,
Right.
who really try to connect their artists to
Right.
different places that can honor their work, truly listen to their work. Uh,
Right.
and I think 5-10 years ago, I stopped listening to music in a real serious, honoring way.
Interesting.
And when you're
How, why?
touring full
Oh,
time,
just because of being burnt out, being on the road a bit, kind of. Yeah.
it's like the last thing you want to listen to is more music. You're playing
I,
150 shows a year. You're listening to the
I
mixes of your record. You're so wrapped up in your own uh, hopes and dreams that you're not actually listening to what everyone else is creating to sort of
dude,
stoke your own fires.
I really relate to that. I'm glad you said that because I'm exactly the same way and trying to pull myself out of it. And I'm kind of one of my only friends. The guys, I mean, pre-COVID, when we were running around in the van, all they do is play music constantly, constantly,
Uh-huh.
constantly. And I didn't want to complain in the van because I didn't want to be the uncool person, when they're like, check out this, I don't even know what they were listening to, all these like deep cuts of these African artists and all this
Yeah.
cool shit that I should have known about. Um, so I kind of, yeah, but I relate to you. And I still have trouble listening to music when I'm playing too much. I actually can't. I can't take it in.
Yeah, because you
It's a weird
are
thing.
both competing with it, right? You're like, oh, well, this is better than me. This is what I want to do. And now it's making me feel bad about myself. Sometimes
Yeah,
there's
that
that
happens
immature
sometimes.
thing,
Right, right, right.
or there's the just sheer sonic overload thing where you're
Yeah.
like, my ears need a rest. I need to hear about, some NPR soft, I need some NPR soft whispering in my ear about, you know, the Palestinian crisis. I need
Right.
to like be serious. I need to be a
I need
serious
someone
person.
whispering to me about a pandemic in my ear. Yeah, no. God.
But that song that you opened the new record with, verse 23,
I love that song. Isn't that a
which
beautiful tune?
was written by
Mike Taylor
yeah, Hiskell
from Hiss,
Messenger.
from Hiss, yeah.
Um, it feels like I Shall Be Released Next Generation, right?
Wow, I never thought of that till you said it. That is, it really does. And
Like
I'm glad you
acknowledging everything that came before, trying
yes.
to honor the people that you love, but also, again, that forgiveness, that sense of rebirth and hope.
Yes, I
Like you
know it.
have to have the years of experience to feel that.
And that song, like there's something about those lyrics and there's something about the lift of that chorus melodically that just that puts everybody, at least when we my experience singing the song, of course, and with the players, it puts all of us right there. If you're playing along with it, singing along with it, it really does. I don't know, I'm curious to see how audiences, if people connect with that song or not, because when we recorded it and the few times that I've gotten to sing it since making the record, which hasn't been for an audience, but really just for a video shoot actually that we did, just um, that song has a real it has something to it. There is something about it when you start to play it that feels like that. And that's an interesting connection. I never thought of the I shall be released feeling of it. It does have that.
Well, that line that comes from what, the Psalm of David, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. It's almost like
Yeah.
a Buddhist vibe,
Yes.
like
Right.
accept what you cannot have
Yes.
and accept what
Right.
you do have.
Right.
and be okay
Right.
now here,
Right.
which is
Right.
very difficult for us to do right now.
Totally. It was wild to, I made the record 2 months before the lockdown last year, and I decided to title the record What the Flood Leaves Behind. And then it was very weird to kind of revisit all of this after a pandemic. It's odd to sing that song now. So, not odd, but it just can't help but feel the tug of that, the kind of the by accidental prophecy of that lyric, I
Did your
guess.
parents instill any spirituality or sense that there's a higher power when you were a young girl?
Um, my dad was a very, we he wasn't very religious, but he was very spiritual, and we talked about a lot of that stuff. But I always had my own deep connection to that. I was always very interested in religion, and went through a brief period of time actually in my 30s or late 20s where I thought I might want to become a minister,
Hmm.
and kind of did a self study into a lot of some of the mystical Christian tradition that um, gave me the ears and eyes to sit in church and take some of the hypocrisy that I couldn't stand of the organized churches, especially in Christianity, um, kind of take that away and just focus on the more Buddhist and mystical teachings of Christ. So I've always been really interested in all religions, and without that, I don't know how I would have really come through some of the things I had to come through. So I think by accident through the chaos, they taught me a lot about spirituality, because when you're going through chaos, whether you're going to call it God or whether your thing is just going to be going into the woods and getting yourself centered and that's your God, how whatever word, whatever title you give to it, whatever you call it, you need that to survive feeling alone. I think we all do.
And your oldest son plays drums, right?
Yes, he does. He does. He just turned 13, and he loves it. He loves it. I'm really, really proud of him. He's really good.
Maybe you could do like a Jeff Tweedy, Spencer Tweedy thing where he just joins the band eventually. It's like inevitable.
He kind of already has here and there. He's got a lot of great, we have, I'm sure like you have a nice tribe of musicians at your home base, and he's got some excellent music teachers too. There's some great music teachers here in Woodstock that have really are helping him shape his playing, and yeah, he's funny. He's into it. You might as well give this kid a negative balance in his bank account, and stick him in a van, get him on the road. He's ready. He's like a lifer. He's already a lifer. It's pretty funny.
Yeah, you're not a real musician until you've gone through some overdraft fees. That's just how it works.
Yes, true.
I liked when I used to go to the supermarket in LA with my coin jar. It was like, oh,
I
I
did
have
that.
I have at least like $20 of like quarters in here. It looks like I'm negative $15 on my account right now. Whoop, and I'm back in the black. Thanks,
I've
Time
done that
Star.
coin trip, dude. I've done that coin trip many times to the supermarket. I remember those days.
Well, this time right now, accidentally for a lot of musicians, is almost a godsend because it's allowed us to, I think, recharge, but also to not be constantly worrying about when the next gig is going to come, when the next paycheck's going to come.
Yeah.
Um, Not saying that every musician should go on unemployment, but it
No,
feels
it's a
like
godsend. And you know what?
universal income for musicians.
Yes, and you know what? Just the other night, I was at hanging out with my friend Rachel Yamagata, who's here in Woodstock, who's an incredible singer songwriter, and she was talking about, and she said, and she was so right. I thought, yes, she said, "Fuck yes, musicians run on. Let them get unemployment. They deserve it. Musicians work their asses off.
Yeah.
And musicians don't have a union unless you're doing a Broadway gig or club dates. You don't have a lot of, there's not a great support system for musicians. I don't know a single musician who has health care. It's a rough, it's not, as I said before, this is not a well designed industry.
Right.
So I think it's great that musicians are getting unemployment. It makes me so happy and it feels so ethically and spiritually correct, don't you think?
Well, again, the idea of a stipend, like a cultural stipend
Yeah,
for the people creating the soundtrack to your world,
yeah,
right? How else do you expect this music to be created, right? These people have to live. I mean, yes, it would be more affordable for me to live in like Nebraska than it
right,
would be to live in LA, but
right.
so many people that I've met here from all over the world have come to LA to make the magic happen, right? That's the unique
Mm,
thing about this town and other cultural hubs. It's like people are here to really do it, not to like think about it, to
right,
really do it.
right.
And it's daunting, I think, when you have a band like mine in Dust Bowl Revival that's been around for 10 plus years, and we've, toured 10, 12 different countries and played festivals all over the world. But like the ups and downs are real. And I think right now we're having some people leave the band. We have new people coming in, and you have to win back your audience, which is a frightening place to be, because you're like, are people going to show up when we finally get back out there? And
I
we don't
hope
know.
that, yeah, I hope that people step up and really, you know, really remember to support live music. It's so hugely important to do it. I hope that every musician that walks out onto a stage has as many people as can legally be held in a space with all these the restrictions are rough, the half capacity stuff,
Yeah.
that's rough right now. But I think that things will shift, and I'm hoping that people are hungry for live music. People are hungry for it. People want to go hear anything. They want to feel good and
Yeah.
feel connected. So I'm faithful that you're going to have your audience right there, and
I
I
think
hope I'll have mine too.
if I remember, one of the last gigs we did, I think in November of 2019, was
Yeah.
in Woodstock. And a couple of us made the pilgrimage to see, the gravestones of some of the band greats,
Yeah.
and, you know, found the big pink house.
Uh-huh.
And I think for groups like ours that don't really fit into any one genre, that have the brass and the roots music sort of base,
Yeah.
the band is the pinnacle, right?
Yeah.
It's like the weird guys who actually made it.
Right. Right.
And that, is continues to be an inspiration, which is, which is awesome. And I love playing those songs. It's like inhabiting uh a little dose of perfection every time you get in there.
Which was your favorite one to play or perform?
I think singing The Weight
Yeah.
is sort of just a spiritual experience, kind of,
Yeah.
because I also think of the Aretha Franklin version,
I love that version. Yeah.
and like the different permutations of this song as a modern spiritual or a
Yeah.
modern
Right.
standard, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
and people now like almost assume that's part of our set, and
Right.
young people don't even know who the band is,
Right.
but they know that song.
Right.
It feels like, Amazing Grace or something. It's something
Right.
that's part
Right.
of our
It's
universe
part of
now.
our DNA now. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
If you
interesting.
if you could get the original band together and sing, you singing lead, which
Me?
yeah, what song would you sing with that band behind you?
Jeez. Gosh, what a question. Let me think.
Makes No Difference would be pretty epic.
Makes no difference. I would sing something that where I could really feel what it was like to sing harmony with Richard and Rick.
Yeah.
And if I could do anything,
Yeah.
I would want to jump. I would want to be in Richard's body and see what it's like to have that voice. That voice, to hear him sing Lonesome Susie, to hear him sing these songs, man, I just like his singing just kills me.
Yeah.
Like if I feel like if I could sing a note like he did, then I would have arrived at some place as a singer. I mean, talk about years of experience and just the subtleties of his phrasing and the ache of his notes and the kind of the honesty of it.
Right.
It's so honest, everything he sang. So he was my favorite singer of that group.
All right. The last thing we're going to do is a little poetic exercise we like to
Okay.
go out on. Don't even hesitate. Just say the first thing that comes to your mind when I say the following phrase, word, or song. Oh, here we go. What do you think of when I say light post?
Flicker,
What do you think when I say bird's wing?
white,
What do you think when I say shimmering?
sequin dress.
Did you wear that to prom?
No, but I would like to.
Who did you go with to prom?
I don't remember. I think I went with friends. I went with friends.
Do they still have prom for like high
They
schoolers
do
now?
still have proms. My prom at my high school was lame because it was like, I don't know why. It was just kind of an odd. Everyone got drunk on a rooftop in New York City, and I was like, this is lame. I think I went home early. I didn't have a great prom. I need to relive my prom fantasy in a sequin dress with like, you know, really cute guy by my side. Like, just do the prom.
I had a 101 fever the night of my
Mm,
prom, and I somehow convinced my mom that, oh, we'll just take the like heavy Tylenol and I'll just like ride it out. It'll be fine.
oh,
And we had like a limo, me and my, high school sweetheart. It was like a whole thing, like downtown Chicago, like a rooftop, you know, dance
nice.
floor. And I was like, there's no way I'm missing this. And my mom's like, if you start like passing out or like hurling, like just call my cell phone and I'll be like downstairs, basically. She was like on call, basically. And
And did you?
I was like, I'm feeling great. Like I'm on codeine and like life is great.
God.
And then I danced like one number with like the rest of the class. And then I was like, yeah, I'm going to need you to pick me up in like 10 minutes. I was like, done.
Oh, thank God for moms being on the ready.
I just love that the limo driver, and we're like, what, 16, had like a thing of champagne in the limo. And he was just like, yeah, I don't care that you're underage and on heavy medication. Go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah.
What was the most rebellious thing you did as a teenager?
I wasn't rebellious.
Come on,
I was
one
like a
thing.
really dorky, good girl. What did I do? Uh, I didn't really rebel. I didn't do it. Well, what did I do? Oh, well, you know what? I did. We had a friend named Hillary who was like 5'11", blonde. She looked like, I mean, she looked like Bridget Bardot. And
Uh-huh.
so we would go sneak out and go to clubs when we were underage, and we'd push her to the front of the line because she
There you
was
go.
so gorgeous that the bouncers just let her in, and then we'd walk behind her, with our like
We're with
dorky,
Bridget.
huh?
We're with Bridget. We're
Yeah,
cool.
we're with Bridget.
All right. Next word is sanctum.
Sanctum?
Yeah, sanctum.
Oh, sanctum.
Yes.
What does sanctum mean again? Like a holy place?
Yeah, I think so. Like an inner sanctum, like the
Oh, an inner
enclosed
sanctum. Yeah, yeah. I've never heard of it.
sacred
That inner
room.
inner sanctum. Ah, um, the body, I would say.
What is your guilty pleasure food that you eat all the time?
Guilty pleasure food. Uh, oh, definitely Cheetos
Oh,
once in a while. I'm pretty healthy, but sometimes once every couple months after a gig, it's late and I need like some Cheetos or Doritos or Stewart's brand cheddar Swiss chips.
in LA, there's these elote sellers, do the corn and the
Mm,
mayo and the cheese, who are now
mm.
using flaming hot Cheeto dust as part
Ooh,
of the elote concoction
oh,
with
Jesus.
the lime juice and the paprika. It is just
Nice.
like frighteningly good.
Oh my God. See, I can't do spice, so I wouldn't enjoy it. But oh
Oh,
shit, that's them calling me. Hold on. I have another interview now, which I'm late for, but
well, let's wrap it up.
let me just text, yes, and let me just text Sierra and tell her. Okay. Yes. Go ahead.
To take us out, what song would you like to introduce us to, either from the new record or anywhere in your catalog that you want people to hear?
Uh, uh well, let's see. Well, let's I guess verse 23, because we talked about that and I felt connected to that song.
I'm really glad I could finally dive into your music, and it's just a beautiful new record. So I'm glad that it exists in the
Thank you.
universe,
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I appreciate your questions and your time.
and I hope we can all play a ramble soon.
Yeah, come on. Come to Woodstock.
We'll be around.
Cool.
All right, well, keep up the good work.
Okay, great. I'll email this voice recording to Sierra because I don't think I have your direct email.
Yeah, or just show on the road pod at Gmail.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so
Thank you
much.
so much.
Have a great day.
All right, bye.
Bye.